For God's sakes, Joe, it was 1516. That's when the Untitled went into effect. Oh, hello. I'm so sorry I didn't see you there. While you're here, I might as well tell you that we're not experts here at the Beer History Podcast. You don't have to believe what I just said. But to the best of our knowledge, everything that we say in the episode is accurate at the time of recording.
You're listening to the Beer History Podcast, hosted by David Tartaro and Dennis Abdulhamid. Today's guest, Andrea Newbern. And now, here are the hosts of the Beer History Podcast, David Tartaro and Dennis Abdulhamid.
Hello, everybody. We are back with another episode of the Beer History Podcast. I'm your host, as always, David, the Samurai of Sicily Tartaro. And with me is my trusty steed, Dennis, the Panda Whisperer, Abdulhamid. He's very gentle.
I whisper to pandas, apparently.
He whispers to pandas.
Right.
Today we'll be reviewing the history of beer in Japan. So this will be very exciting. We have a special guest, Andrea Newbern, who has an interest in Japan. Is that right?
Yes. And I'm half Japanese, so I can give you at least half of an accurate opinion.
Don't take half of what she says seriously.
Yeah.
That's all we asked for.
What is? I want to see your shirt. The shirt you're wearing.
It says ramen.
I love it.
I was gonna wear my whole kimono, but I just
Oh my
I
gosh!
didn't have time.
Hokimono angry. Hokimono smash.
Do you really have a full kimono?
Yeah.
What do you use it
It's
for?
so legit that it was given to me.
Oh,
And
cool.
I won it one time when I was 14, but there's like a whole process, can take a really long time to wear it. So, and I don't know anyone who can help me. Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't just put it on
Well,
yourself.
I YouTubed it, but.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you
I
still
need some
fit in it from when you were 14?
Yeah, because it was way too big for me then. It was for like an
Oh,
adult.
nice. That worked out perfect.
Yeah, I want to wear it again.
Well, when was the last time you haven't worn it since you were 14?
No, I have to show it. I'll have to show you some pictures.
I don't know if that really made any sense then.
It's a flashback. She's going to tell us about it.
This one time.
I feel like Dennis is just like, any second. All right, this works.
Insert here.
So, what's your your interest in beer? Why don't you talk about that?
I love beer. It's actually a little bit of an obsession for me. But I really, oh yeah.
We'll hear it for real in a minute.
Yeah. And I've actually had lots of Japanese beers. Well, the ones that are available to us.
Yeah.
Very easily in the U.S. And I had them early on, probably before I was legally allowed to have any, just to taste them.
I bet you probably legal in Japan. You're at the legal age, maybe.
Yeah, but I like craft beer the most. I really, really love, Hefeweizens and ales mostly.
Yeah.
But I drink anything that's not tied down. So
Yeah, Andrea is huge into beer, and her passion for it is like very few people I know. When she's pouring the beer and drinking it, she just... Andrea's the type of person that enjoys things.
yeah, I like the label. I like the can.
Heck yeah.
I like the names. I like the smells and the cute glasses you can drink them out of. Oh, and the taste. That's good too.
That's important. Well, and that's why I was excited to have you on this episode, because you kind of fit the whole gamut of what I'm looking for here as a guest.
Only problem is I like it so much that I rarely have a beer that I don't, you know what I mean? That I don't like.
I don't know. I'm the same way. Even, a lot of nationally popular beers in different countries are not particularly exciting, but the culture behind the beer and the history behind the beer, especially now after doing all this research for this episode, it's going to make me like Japanese beer even more than I did before.
I can only imagine, because they're already such a cultural culture.
They are.
That's the way to say that.
Yeah. So actually, it's funny you say that. I have been listening to Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. Have you ever heard of that show? It's a podcast. It's so good. Oh my gosh. It's very long. Like the episodes are over 4 hours.
Oh, nice.
But he does series. It's like a documentary almost, but his personality really goes into it, and he's just he knows a lot, and he's intense. It's so great to listen to. And it's hardcore history because he gets into the details, the details that maybe not everybody would even want to listen to, you know. But Anyway, what he says on the show throughout the series, the series on Japan that he did, which, by the way, do I have it? Oh, yeah, Supernova in the East. That's what it's called. You guys should definitely check it out. Really good. I think episode 62 is the first one of that series. He's got a few episodes. But he always says that, the Japanese culture is really not that different from other cultures in a lot of respects. But what makes them unique is that they're just way more intense with how they do everything. Mm-hmm. So his phrase that he says the whole time, I'm going to do it in my best Dan Carlin voice. He goes, the Japanese are like everybody else, only more so. But he says it. I love it too. He says it throughout the whole series.
That's great.
But they really are. They're just a very intense culture, and they're so, over the top with quality and with, process, and just everything is important. Every detail is important.
Yeah. Food. Just all sorts of things.
I love it.
But that's why I'm so interested to hear about this. And they do really strange things too. Like teriyaki flavored Kit Kats, So
yeah.
I don't know much about their craft beer scene. But I figure if they have one, I don't know. I'm like,
we'll get into it.
Yeah. It's either going to be really within these strict guidelines. And so, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be one extreme or the other. So
we'll get to it. Yeah.
Wasabi flavored craft beer. That'd be awesome.
So we're going to go back way before craft beer was a thing in Japanese history. In fact,
we got to go back.
We're going to go back. We're going to go back before beer was a thing. So Japan is a very old culture.
On the third day, God created beer.
Well, not in Japan.
Oh, okay.
They, if you look at I'm going to be doing another episode on ancient beers, and beer goes back,
to the third day.
Over 10,000 years.
Yeah,
but in Japan, it's only been a thing since the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is nuts. But we're not starting then. We're going to start in the 1600s because I think to really understand why beer culture in Japan is the way it is today, you have to go back that far.
Okay.
And you have to understand what happened to the country of Japan to get to the point that they're at now. So anyway, 1603, which was the beginning of the Edo period, right? Yeah, by the way, for any listeners who are Japanese, forgive me for my horrible pronunciations. I'm going to try my best.
That was good.
Thank you. The Tokugawa was the government at the time, which is basically like a military dictatorship, right? And they were hardcore.
Yeah.
And up until that point, there were all kinds of wars. The country itself was in all kinds of civil war. They were sort of like tribal. And they got to a point where they realized that to protect themselves from the outside world, they needed to unite. Japan needed to unite, and they did. And the Tokugawa, they were shoguns. They closed off their borders for the most part to the outside world. So they were like, we don't want people coming in. We don't want people going out. We don't care about your culture. And even as far as trade went, they just whittled it down to very few countries. So at first it was Portugal they would do trade with, and the Dutch and China. And
bork.
No, we're not far enough north for bork.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So anyway, they actually allowed the Portuguese and the Dutch in the country to do trade. No one else could. And after a pretty short period of time, they started getting the feeling that the Portuguese were colluding with the Christian rebels, right? And they did not like Christianity at all, because the Japanese at the time were the emperor is a god, and we don't want anyone competing with that. So they were get out of here, Portugal. Out. Yeah, you're gone. And they actually made this this man-made island in Hiroshima, right? And what they did, they had a peninsula, and they just dug this giant trench at the end, and they were like, okay, this is the island. It was 2 acres. It was called, Deshima. So they basically shoved the Dutch on that island. It was 2 acres, right? So we're talking my house is on a half acre, so 4 of my house's properties.
It's a gentle brag, right? A humble brag.
Yeah.
My house is on almost 2 acres.
We live in Florida. People have much bigger lots than that.
Everything's bigger in Florida.
I'm an agriculture major, so pretty sure I
know
know
right.
what an acre looks like.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure you've lived on much bigger proproperties than half an acre.
A good description is a football field without the end zones.
Oh, is that what?
If you ever need to visualize.
That's about an acre?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, so I'm like on half a football
that
field.
has nothing to do with
Whoa, the tables have been churned.
Visual aids are important. Well, anyway, so we're talking like less than 24 people living in this little town, basically, of Dutch people, and a bunch of Japanese people also living on the island. I mean, they were like monitored. There was only one way in and out. They only got a handful of shipments a year. But the influence that the Dutch had on Japanese culture for the next like 200 plus years, which is how long they had their borders closed, was pretty important, right? They called it sakoku, which was like the Japanese isolation policy. Okay. So eventually, the Dutch started bringing in beer because, like every other culture in the world besides Japan, beer was an important part of their culture. And they were like, how am I going to drink, right? Actually, I should stop myself right there because I planned on pouring a beer before this. And I think this is a good time. That. Yeah, we should do that.
I'm really parched right now.
We have, for most of the Japanese beer brewing history, there's only been like 5 major breweries. And one of them, which you don't see a lot around here, I don't know if you've ever heard of Orion.
Actually don't think I have.
No, I've actually never even had it before.
Asaden.
So here, what do you see around here as far as Japanese beer goes?
Oh, Sapporo.
That's a big one.
Kiren Ichiban.
Yep, that's a big one.
And Asahi.
Yep, those are basically the big 3 that we get in the U.S.
Okay, that sounded like you just made stuff up.
I love Asahi. I mean, no offense. It's not like it tastes that great. I mean,
it's a good beer.
Yeah, it's not like it's bad. I'm just saying it's not like it's. I like it because it tastes the best of the 3. But I do know, and I learned this at a very young age, that means morning sun, and I like it because it's you may not like this as much as me, David, but they have like this belief, that every day is a new day to start over. And
is that why that's probably so that's why they named the beer that, I guess.
Yeah, so
that's
sweet.
Cool. It's that's actually the number 1 most popular beer in Japan.
No way. I thought it would be Sapporo.
Asahi, yeah.
Now for Sapporo, I have only had I don't know, their normal, silver can. I think there's a black one. I would love to try that. And then any of these nitrogenated would be amazing too.
Yeah. I've seen that black one.
Can we please do a Japanese toast? And I taught you that word years ago. Do you happen to remember?
Hold on. This is for, we have a production crew member that would be very sad if we didn't give her.
Drinking on the job is encouraged.
The Japanese.
See, now this makes me want to go have some Japanese cuisine.
It's not bonsai?
Nope. I mean, that was in Karate Kid.
Bonsai!
That works. But
yeah, I know. That's literally what I was mimicking when I said that.
It kind of rhymes with that.
What was it? I can't remember.
Kampai.
Ah!
Yeah.
I did know that. All right, Andrea, do it for us.
Okay. Kampai.
Kampai. Sorry for those of you not watching on YouTube and listening. You have to just listen to us drink. Oh, this is really good. I like it. Now, Orion is like, they're one of the, thank you for that.
Bravo.
Very clear. They're one of the top 5 major breweries in Japan, but they're the smallest of the 5. And they only cover like, I think 2% of the beer market. And then you got like Asahi, who's like in the 30s or something like that. So they're relatively small, but
look at that label, man.
It's really cool, man. It's like retro.
That's why I like it. It literally looks like something that your grandpa, brought back
Hold on,
from the war.
I don't know if this will be in focus.
I love that.
It's really cool. Yeah, your grandpa brought back from the war.
Yeah,
yes, it kind of does. So
that's very nice. From Okinawa?
Yeah, it's from Okinawa. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Makes it even better.
Well, anyway, so the Dutch really sort of like ingrained their culture into Japanese culture, and it was less their culture and more their advancements and achievements and things like that regarding science and technology. Because you got to think, like, you got this country that's an island. They're at the edge of the world, right? Nobody is going in, nobody's going out except for the Dutch. And I think the Chinese had some limited trade as well, which I didn't read too much about that because that didn't have anything to do with beer. Mm-hmm. But so they didn't have any way of expanding their technology other than from within their own bounds, other than these books and things like that they would get from the Dutch. So in like 1853, finally there was beer available to a very limited number of Japanese people. There was a guy named Kawamoto Komen, which I just learned this. I'm sure you already know. They do last name first and first name last, right? In Japanese. So Komen was, I guess, is like what we would call his surname. Surname. That sounds fancier. His surname is Kawamoto. Anyway, they call him the father of chemistry because he was a scholar, he was a doctor, he was a scientist, and he took a lot of these Dutch texts and he read them, translated them, and like brought a lot of that technology to Japan. But they also call him the father of beer because he had a huge interest when he started reading in one of these Dutch books about beer and what it was and how it was made. So he went and found like wild hops that was grown in Japan, which is crazy because they actually had it this whole time and they just didn't realize it. He takes this hops and he follows through these recipes that he's reading in these Dutch books, and he brews Japan's first Japanese-made beer. And it's crazy. We're talking the 1800s. This culture. How old is Japan? I mean,
it should be a movie.
Yeah, it should be a movie. I would watch it.
Had they had beer before though? You think?
No, they hadn't had beer.
Even
maybe
imported from...
there might have been. I mean, I did a lot of research on this island, Deshima, and everything that I read was kind of referencing the same few facts. Mm-hmm. So you could tell that there's not a whole lot of recorded facts about what was happening regarding beer on that island with the Dutch. So I didn't see a single thing saying that they exported it out to Japan at all. And I think it was only imported. I couldn't find anybody saying that it was brewed there. And I saw one reference that said they had a beer hall. Beer halls were like bars back then, basically, during that time period. And but it was only one reference. I'm not even completely convinced that was the case. But it seems like it was really all just the Dutch drinking that beer. That's it.
Neato.
Yeah. So it sucks for the Japanese at the time. But, right, so we got this guy who all of a sudden, brings this out and, he's able to mimic these recipes. And there's several accounts about it, too. So it made enough of an imprint that multiple people recorded, how it was really good. And he actually fed it to some of the Dutch settlers and stuff like that. And, they were impressed by it, I guess.
If we had that time machine we're all saving up for, go back. That would be
saving
awesome.
up for, not developing. We're saving up. It's like
it's on eBay.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Leave it up to the smart people to come up with time travel. We'll just pay for it.
That's right. Yeah, it makes good sense. So I actually went on Kieran's website because they have.
I like their label too.
I do too. All their labels are great in Japan.
They're very minimalist,
Yeah, they're awesome though.
Yeah.
There's like there's symbology and all kinds of stuff. Well, anyway, the Kieran website was in Japanese, so I translated it. But actually, I translated I went on a lot of Japanese websites and translated stuff, and some of it I was like,
it's pretty funny.
I don't know what the heck I just read.
Yeah.
This came out pretty good. So this is talking about Komen Kawamoto. It says he wrote a book called Kagaku Shinsho, and it was him just in this book he described how to make beer based on what he learned from these Dutch texts. So it says this Kagaku Shinsho describes how to brew beer. For example, this is so interesting to me. This is the 1800s. Okay, for example, the upper foam brewing method and the lower foam brewing method. What does that sound like? That sounds like lagers and ales, top fermenting, bottom fermenting. So he's describing this, specifically describes methods such as different fermentation temperatures, preparation times, and storage periods. The upper foam brewing method is the top fermentation method used for brewing British ales, and the lower foam method was still in its infancy at the time, and the bottom fermentation method used for brewing German-style beer. What's so cool about this is the 1830s, the late 1830s, is when lagers were first developed in Bavaria. It was not a thing anywhere. And although I did read something that they might have been brewing lagers in South America or something like that, just nobody realized it. But anyway, you've got this world of beer all over the place where everybody's been brewing ales since the dawn of time. That's the only type of beer that anybody's been brewing. All different kinds of ales, but ales. And Japan, right at the time where lagers had become a thing in Germany, just happened to get this book with this cutting edge technology. And from the get-go, they have both lagers and ales. I mean, they're the only culture probably that had that weird circumstance, presented to them. And they clung to lagers like crazy right off the bat, which is weird because lagers are a lot more difficult to brew. But that's, to this day, lagers are like the big thing in Japan, and they like them like ice cold too.
I know. And that was the one you just served up.
It was. I tried to leave them out for a little bit to like, honestly, this does actually drink way better ice cold, I think. But you know,
gone.
You know how many beers, you don't want your beer ice cold typically, especially if it's an ale, you know, because you're going to lose a lot of that flavor. But this is super good.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
I'm talking too much that you guys are drinking all your beer and I'm not drinking mine.
Bigger too.
I know. I don't know why I did that. That was stingy of me.
Your glass is bigger than mine.
I thought I was the guest, but
I apologize. All right. I'm actually
feeling bad now?
No, but I'm going to have to pour another beer really soon. So I'm actually going to, I think we should just cut real quick.
Chug,
and then,
chug.
We'll be back in about
1 second.
1 second for you. I drink this beer.
Ziggy zaggy. Oi. Ziggy zaggy.
God, I love that so much.
I can't do it. Like, dude, that guy's amazing.
Is he still with us?
No, I think he passed away.
I think I kind of remember when I...
So we've got Coleman makes this beer in 1853, and by chance, at the exact same year, there was a man named he was Commodore Matthew Perry, who was an American Commodore.
Was he a Commodore 64?
He was not a Commodore 64, and also he was not Chandler Bing, because that's the actor Matthew Perry. But I've read so many articles about this guy, and nobody mentioned the Friends connection. Anyway, I guess they're serious scholars as opposed to me.
And I'm thinking Commodores, like...
like the band. Heck yeah. Oh my gosh, my wife loves the Commodores. So up until this point, we're in the mid 1800s. Since 1603, Japan's basically been closed, right? So there were a lot of other countries who had a big interest in opening Japan up, and for trade and other reasons, and probably to exploit them, honestly, a lot of them. So the U.S. was one of these because, of course, the U.S. had a clear shot to them over the Pacific. So they had made a few attempts to try to get into the Japanese port and convince them to open their borders. And what they did was they took like some, if I remember right, they took some shipwrecked Japanese sailors. They brought them over. And I guess there was this sort of like treaty amongst all the major world powers at the time. Because now in the 1800s, this was one of the first times in history where, probably the first time in history, where all these major countries across the whole globe could communicate and have these sort of relationships that they didn't have before. And shipwrecked sailors was a topic, and they were like, oh, well, if my sailor gets shipwrecked on your shores, you take care of him, get him back to us, and we do the same for you. And
Hey,
that kind
I'm
of
going to
thing.
make you a deal. If you... Never mind.
Was that supposed to be Italian?
If your sailors get shipwrecked, I'll take care of them. Don't worry.
That sounds very piratey.
Was that supposed to be a pirate?
I think it was an Italian pirate.
Italian pirate. He was a Roman pilot. Hold on, Dennis's terrible accent. No, I'm going to open our next beer. Okay, so I've never had this before, nor have I ever seen
Oh,
this.
exciting! And I still can't see the label. I like the
It's a cool
cap
label.
Is so cute.
Oh, yeah. It's a little barley and
I didn't
hops.
see the cap of the Orion.
Oh, you want to see it?
Yes, I would like to.
Enjoy. I love the cap, actually. I like the colors, too. So,
For your happy time. See what I mean?
the things that make you happy are so funny.
Awesome.
For
I've already
your
like,
happy time.
Will it make earrings? I don't know. I might make a necklace out of that or something.
So, and that's on every bottle of Orion beer. Yeah. So this is called, hold on, I got to read it to make sure I pronounce it right. Koshihikari Echigo beer. How would you say you pronounce this? I've never seen ECH.
Put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot. Try that. I've never seen that with Japanese writing.
Yeah, that is
kind of an
I guess
odd.
it'd be, and see, beer is not a word. Biru.
Biru. Yeah.
Biru. It's such an easy one to say.
Yeah.
Koshihikari Echigo, I guess. But yeah, that sounds more like a
Western
Latin language or something. Wow. Sorry.
pretty cool.
You put the label in front of me, so now I have to look at that.
I know, it's cool. It's like a watercolor painting.
Yeah.
So
Very classy.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of, it looks like they're in rice patties, so I'm assuming this is a rice beer.
Oh, exciting.
Trying to see if I don't know if the camera will pick it up. So, all right, let's try it. Dang it.
I almost brought an empty can
I'm having way more trouble than I should opening this.
of, but it wouldn't be Japanese. It's a British beer. one of the Iron Maiden beers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they made the sake beer. And it was amazing.
Was it really good?
It's got Eddie, their mascot, for any metalheads out there.
And they brew it.
Their mascot, he's in a samurai outfit. And these times we're talking about the Edo period, that would be samurai times, right? But probably not the 1800s.
I think, I don't know. I don't want to answer that question because I'm not 100% sure. But
Same.
I know here, you take the rest.
Yeah. Don't mind if
Since
I
I'm
do.
the talker. Is it good?
Thank you so much. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
How do I say you're welcome?
Doishitashimashita. It's kind of a hard one.
Doishitashimashita.
You did pretty good.
Is that bad? Not bad? I'm not going to remember it, but ooh, this is good. I like this a lot better
I
than the
haven't had
Orion.
it yet. No, I'm so excited.
So rice, as I'm sure a lot of listeners know, is a common adjunct,
Oh, wow.
adjunct in cheaper beers, but when used as a legitimate ingredient, it gives you a sweet flavor.
And that's what I was going to say. It tastes sweet to me.
Yeah, and I don't know what the grain bill is on this, but if it's 100% rice, I'm not sure. It doesn't say, I don't think, but
Wow.
you're gonna get, when it's used as an adjunct, it's usually just kind of a filler along with barley.
This is from Niigata, Japan.
This is very
Niigata.
good. It's clean.
Very nice.
So
You see his stripes, then you know he's clean.
Yes. Dennis. It's like one of my favorite. Yes. Stop. That's like one of my all-time favorite songs. So
I don't even, was it, let me guess. I'm going to just guess. I don't know what it was. Is it Tenacious D? Dang it.
well, they cover it.
I know how much you like
so
Tenacious D.
give him like half a point. They cover it. It's Ronnie James Dio, and it was in the Pick of Destiny. So that's what I think you were going down that road.
Which
so-
is weird because I never even saw the Pick of Destiny.
Oh yeah, we're gonna watch that.
Oh, I thought you were going to get madder than that.
Let's get back to happy.
I know. What is it?
Let's go back to our happy.
Our
times.
happy. What does it say again on there?
For your happy time.
Yes. Thank you, beer. You're fixing a dire situation. So it's funny. I feel like 15 minutes ago I mentioned Commodore Matthew Perry, and I still have not even said what he did. So it's not your fault.
Well,
It's kind of Dennis was the one that derailed us, I think.
Tangent issues.
I have major tangent issues. So that's an ongoing theme in every episode. So anyway, Commodore Perry comes to Japan after failed attempts. So basically these other attempts, they're like, oh, we got your guys. You want them back? Because I guess Japan had treated shipwreckers, people who were in shipwrecks,
Shipwreckies.
shipwreck sailors.
Is that a new profession that people do? The
shipwreckers?
I'm signing up to be a shipwrecker.
It's like Wreck-It Ralph on a boat.
I'm gonna wreck it.
Well, anyway, they were. I guess Japan had grossly mistreated American shipwrecked soldiers in the past. So they were
can
like,
only imagine.
"Hey, that's not cool. Why don't we be friends? And maybe we can talk about
be friends.
communicating. Why can't we?
We're doing
be friends?"
karaoke after this. I can tell it.
So basically, every what?
Karaoke. That's Japanese.
Oh, I've never
We
thought
have
about
to do
that.
it. Okay, next.
Yay! So
We're so in theme here.
they anyway, you guys are making this so much worse. I'm already going off on tangents every 2 seconds. So looking at the camera, I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone listening. These shipwrecked sailors, they would bring them to Japan. They would try to plead with them to talk. Everybody else is doing it. We're all friends, the whole world. And Japan literally was just like, go away. Nope, you can't talk to us. We don't want to talk to you. Don't come back.
Don't care about our shipwreckers.
Take a hike, buddy. Right?
Yeah.
So 1853, Matthew Perry comes with 4 ships. And this time, Dan Carlin talks about it in the podcast. He's like, these were 4 ships that are heavily armed. And even though they've had this influence through the Dutch, Japan is dude, they're 200 years in the past still. I mean, they're using spears and swords. They're, body armor. I mean, it's a feudal society, especially when you compare it to where everybody else was, having already gone through the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. So they see these warships approach, right? They got guns. They got all kinds of crazy stuff. And the Japanese are just like, oh, crap, this is no joke. These people can absolutely destroy us if they want to. And they knew it. And even though Japan had that culture of, no surrender and that's how they've been for a long time, they're also smart enough to know, like, we got to get with the times. We need to get what they've got and be able to work with this. So I guess they reluctantly made the decision when Perry approached them. He spoke to the emperor, who, by the way, was more of a puppet at the time. So the Tokugawa were still in power, and the emperor was sort of like, I don't want to make it sound like the Queen of England has no.
Yeah, it's just.
That's what I've always heard.
Thing.
I don't want to upset any British people.
Yeah, I know what you mean though.
Isn't that how it is in the UK?
Just sort
Dennis?
of like a figurehead, right?
Like a figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so they were like, okay, we're willing to talk. So they're like, instead of having this happen by force, let's do it,
cordially-ish.
let's cooperate and try to benefit off of having these new relationships. So for the first time in 200 something years, they were like, all right, we're opening our doors to trade. And it was a gradual process. So I have it on here. Let's see. They did the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854 and then the Harris Treaty in 1858. I think those are two of the key treaties that allowed trade and allowed foreigners to come into their country.
Okay.
And I think they kind of focused in sort of one area for a long time, but then eventually you had foreigners all over. This is the beginning of the end for the Tokugawa. They fell apart shortly after, I think maybe only like 10, 15 years later. And then the emperor actually was in power again. They call it how do you say this? Is that Meiji or Meiji? Meiji Restoration. Anyone who's a scholar, I know this is like an actual.
Meiji.
This is a major.
Meiji.
It's a major part in Japanese history, and I know like anybody who is familiar with it is probably like,
Wrong.
how does he not know how to say this? But anyway, and when that happened though, so that was in 1868. The whole culture of Japan just changed like crazy. And it was partially because of this change in government, but it was also partially because of all of these influences from the outside world that they didn't have for such a long time. So what they did was they were the Japanese, right? They're clever. So they were like, we are going to send out Japanese ambassadors to all the countries of the world, the major countries, and we're going to find out what exactly is it that they do better than everybody else. And then we're going to just do what they do and we'll be the best at everything.
Nice.
So, and then that's exactly what they did. And they did it down to, it wasn't just military, related, it was anything. So manufacturing and brewing.
I was going to say brewing, baby.
And you'll never guess where they found the best brewing at the time. Can you guess?
What year?
This
oh,
was
gosh.
so. This is
as if that's going to help me at all.
This is in the late 1800s.
Germany.
Dennis?
The Norway.
No, it was Germany. It was more obvious than. Yeah.
I can't believe I got that right. I was so afraid I was going to say. I mean, seriously, I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like a major option, right? German beer.
I know, but.
Yeah, but you're like, I don't know where the Germans were with beer. Remember, the Germans, they've been brewing beer for ages at this point, right?
And they're damn good at it.
Yes, and they were experts when this happened. So, once again, I'm the only one with beer left. Dennis, I'm impressed.
I know.
Dennis is usually the
He
slowest.
has an affinity for Asian beers.
Japanese specifically.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the Germans. So they sent
Nice.
a man named Seibai Nakagawa to Germany to learn the brewing trade. He comes back, and they actually established a brewery in 1876, which today is Sapporo, and it was government run. So now before Sapporo, it wasn't called Sapporo originally, but before that brewery was established, Kirin actually established the first brewery. But I shouldn't say it like that because that isn't exactly how it happened. There was actually an American. His name was William Copeland. He came to Japan. Now we're at a point in Japan, a couple decades after they opened up, where people are allowed in the country. People are allowed to,
Influence.
live there. Yeah, and he's like, we have so many foreign traders coming into the country. They're all beer drinkers, right? Every other country but Japan. So why don't I open up a brewery to cater to all these guys? It was a business opportunity. So it was called Spring Valley Brewery, That was in 1869 or 1870. I saw conflicting info from different sources. In Yokohama, yeah. So he opens it up, and that brewery eventually became Kirin in 1888. Oh. Yeah, so now you got Sapporo, you got Kirin, right? All these old breweries. And then Asahi and Suntory was the other one, which we'll talk about them in a minute.
Yeah.
I know you're saying no because...
No, I don't know that one.
You don't see it. You don't see it here. Anyway, so time goes by, right? The 1800s roll through. Breweries get bigger and bigger. There's like triple-digit breweries in Japan at this point. And, the Japanese government at the time was very different than our government, right? They had commercial businesses, but they really wanted to control competition for whatever reason. And they felt that there was too much competition, that was a problem. So in 1906, they were like, we're going to consolidate all these breweries. And they like whittled breweries down to like just a few major breweries, and that was it. And I think even, I wish I wrote it down. I want to say Sapporo and Asahi were the same brewery for a little bit. That might be wrong. Dennis, mind looking that up? I don't want people to,
It wouldn't surprise me. We should maybe have done a blind test. I don't know that I could have told you the differences.
Yeah, I feel like Asahi's got they call it Asahi Dry. I feel like it does have a drier kind of flavor to it. That would have been, dang it, that would have been a good idea. I should have done that.
Another time.
Yeah.
You have more podcasts that you could totally do that.
That's true. So one of them, I want to say Sapporo was originally called Japan Brewing Company. I think.
Super original.
So anyway, in 1908, just a couple of years later, they passed some crazy tax law. And they were like, I guess they were like, okay, we consolidated, but we want to make it even harder for small breweries to even exist. We just want there to be a few big ones, and that's it. So they passed a law where roughly, converting the volume to gallons, it was like 50,000 gallons a year. If you can't make at least that much a year, you can't be a brewery in Japan. So that was in 1908, shortly after they did this consolidation. So now it was like, even if you wanted to open a small brewery after that post-consolidation, you can't.
Yeah.
Did you find something?
It says Asahi and Kirin were merged with how do you pronounce it again?
Sapporo,
yeah.
Oh, all three of them merged together.
Yeah, 1906.
Oh, crazy. Yeah.
And they became Dai Nippon Beer Company.
Ooh.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, Nippon.
Cool.
That means Japan.
Oh, does it? Again, super original name,
really
right?
simple words.
Maybe that's where Japan Brewery, maybe that's what I was reading. Yeah, well, and anyway, of course, they all split again because they're now separate corporate businesses, commercial businesses. And Sapporo is no longer run by, I don't think it's run by the Japanese government. I don't know how I would have missed that in my research, but I don't know. You never know. So that 50,000 gallons a year, after 1908, at some point, they jacked it up. I don't know if it was multiple times, but at the highest point, it was 500,000 gallons a year. So now you're like, macro brewery only, that's it. They just killed any chance of having craft beer.
Killed a lot of craft beer dreams.
They did. But in 1994, I don't know what happened, but the government made the decision to repeal that law completely.
Nice. And
for the first time in, 80 years or however long it was, anybody could open a brewery on a small scale. Well, anybody who could produce at least 15,000 gallons. So I guess they still had a floor, for what you could.
Is that a lot?
15,000 gallons? Let's put it this way. There's plenty of craft breweries who brew less than that, but I don't know. I'm used to
I could probably drink that in a year.
I'm used to dealing in barrels. Yeah. I'd have to convert it. I think it's like 40 something, 42 gallons is a barrel. That's actually that's very small.
Yeah,
that's
I
pretty
feel
small.
like it is. I'm like, I actually think I could probably drink that in a year.
Yeah. I could probably drink that in a year. If you could drink it in a year, then
anyone wants to challenge me and give me 15,000 gallons of beer to drink for a year for free.
For free. P.S. If I fail, I still don't have to pay for it.
And if I could pick the brewery, that would be really awesome. But I will not name drop right now.
Maybe a variety would be great.
Yeah. No, there's like.
Wait, you can name drop who?
Man.
Who would you pick?
That Isla Morada.
Oh,
Company.
yeah.
Their Sunset Ale. If they're listening, please, I'll give anything, man. It is so good. And then that Kolsch from Florida.
Yeah, the Giant Leap.
Dude,
That's the best beer they've made in years.
oh, it's one of the best beers I've ever had, and it's an issue, like I said, because I would drink 8.
It's
I
cool
mean,
because it's
as a snack.
It's got that kind of citrusy flavor. Yeah, it's really good.
Very refreshing.
Kolsch's are a great
Yeah.
flavor, great style to begin with.
Tangent.
So according to Wikipedia, a barrel
So many
can
tangents.
range between 26 to 53 U.S. gallons.
26 to 53. Oh, it probably depends on the country, I bet. You know, it's funny if you look at like kegs.
Stop showing me the label.
There's different. There's like different. If you depending on the source, you'll see like barrels and kegs and all those different units of measurement. Different interpretations of what they mean. It's not. Doesn't seem very consistent.
Kawaii ne.
What does that mean?
Cute. Oh, I don't have a camera. It is cute.
Cute.
It's a little owl.
It's so cute.
It's so cute. Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is a cool one. This is Kiuchi Brewery, and they actually predate all the other breweries that we've mentioned, but not as a brewery.
Ooh, the beer's getting darker too.
It is getting darker.
Like
This is craft beer in Japan.
Oh snap!
So
Okay.
Kiuchi used to be a sake producer, and they went in 1994 when they opened up, the limits, the brewery limits. Here, let me get that last little bit.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, do it. You're our special guest.
Oh my gosh, it's good. I already had a sip. Sorry.
Yeah. They so anyway, they were like, we want to get in on the beer market. So this is an old sake manufacturer, producer, and they started brewing. And this beer right here, actually, hold on,
It's an ale brewed with red rice.
I have this. I like buying old beer related books. This one's not that old, I don't think.
Hitachino Nest.
This is
Cute.
The Complete Guide to Beer by Edgar Allan Poe.
Now,
No,
children.
by Robert Jackson and David Kenning. This is like, I love looking at these books because you find the same information in different books, but the information changes based on the year. And, if you're just talking about the past 20 years, even, you see huge difference. This one's 2008. So I actually saw this exact beer in this book. So,
No way.
yeah, they were brewing this at least since 2008. Hitachino Nest red rice beer. So I think Nest is like a series that they do. A series. What would you call that? Not a series. They've got several different varieties. Mm-hmm. And this one's actually made with rice. So it says, it's a little bit long, but I like the way that they describe it. The slightly hazy orangey color comes not from the malts used as you might expect, but from the use of red rice, which also gives the beer a crisp, clean, refreshing character with a slightly sweet edge, like we were talking about earlier, similar to sake. And remember, this brewery was originally a sake producer. They still do make sake. There is also a delicate hint of bitter, citrusy hops in the flavor. The high alcohol content gives it a spicy, mouth-drying tang and a pleasant warmth in the finish. The use of rice reflects the brewery's 1823 origins as a sake brewer. Pretty cool.
I love that.
Yeah, so I haven't even
Very
tried it yet.
nice.
Let's see.
Lots to be proud of.
I've seen this one for ages. Like, I'll see it in Total Wine, and
Oh, really?
I haven't picked it up yet, and this is my first time having it.
Wow.
Well, they definitely don't sake.
Hey-o! Up top. Oh, wow. That's got a real different flavor than I was expecting.
Yeah, this one has probably the strongest
Flavor.
out of the
Oh,
other
for
two.
sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very
It's got
crafty.
it's got like a very unique finish. Like the back of your tongue. Back. I don't know why I bawed when I said that. Really good.
Yes.
I watched a couple documentaries on beer in Japan, and it's like it's exploding, man. Since '94, it's really picked up speed, and basically like a lot of the it's really neat watching it. One of them was called I think it's just called I don't want to say it wrong. I think it's called Beer in Japan. I'm gonna point up to the corner. That's where Dennis is gonna put the real name if I got it wrong. In post-production. Wait a minute. No, I have it in my references.
Spend months on these notes and don't even refer to them.
Oh, a craft beer in Japan. Dang it.
That's okay.
So close.
That was
How
very
did
close.
how did I get it wrong? Rob Labreglio. He's
Not Japanese.
he's the owner
Clearly.
he's the owner of a brewery in the U.S. And what he did was, did I put that in here? Oh, I should name drop him. Maybe I didn't. He basically he was like, I want to wait. Nope, I didn't. Okay, sorry. Apologize again. He basically he was like, I want to explore this market because it's emerging in comparison to the U.S. I mean, it's a new thing, relatively, and so he did a whole 24 minutes, 27 minutes or something. You can watch it on Amazon Prime,
Okay.
for free if you have Prime. It's really cool. And he visits all these different breweries and he talks to the brewmasters, he talks to the owners, and they give you all this really cool input about what beer culture is like there compared to the U.S. And it's super different in a lot of ways, but it's actually similar in some ways too. They're one of the countries that, like the U.S., they're breaking into a market where ales are not really a thing. I mean, they are here now, but they weren't
but
when
like
craft
you
beer
said, there
first
they
became
like
popular.
lagers.
Yeah, and that's how it was in the U.S. after the Great Depression. It was like nothing but lagers.
I'm cool with lagers
So,
too.
yeah, but there's a lot more out there, right? So you hear these different brewers and owners of these breweries talking about it in Japan, and it's just so interesting. That sort of seems like the mentality is we're supposed to be this culture where we do everything better.
More so.
Yeah, yeah, we're like everybody else.
I know, to me the
only more so.
possibilities.
Yeah, so that's
Talk
how
about a
and
tangent.
that's how a lot of these people feel. They're like we're brewing nothing but these lagers. They're all the same. So
Yeah.
let's try to get some of actual Japanese culture into our beer. So like brewing with rice, brewing with local herbs, whatever they've got available, and that's what a lot of these guys are doing. Really interesting, cool stuff.
I'm thinking like some of their springs, man. If they could use some of the
Oh, I'm sure a lot of them
healing
do.
spring water,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Totally.
I would buy that.
Yeah, and it's like I wish we had more options here, Japanese craft beer. And that's kind of the one thing that stinks about craft beer in other countries is most
Nothing
of them
stinks
don't
about
distribute.
craft beer.
Well, it stinks when you can't get it. That's what stinks.
That is very true.
They're all small,
Yeah.
So right now they've got at least the latest reference I was able to find. There's over 300 microbreweries in Japan, which is tiny compared to the U.S. But
Yeah, and there's tons of people there. I would just think per capita,
Well,
there'd
I
be
mean,
more breweries.
they had like nothing going on, not even that long ago. I wrote it in here. I think at one point they only had 4 breweries in I wrote it in here. Oh, here you go. Yeah, 1991. 4 breweries, and now they've got over 300. That's awesome. I mean, we never got that low, even at our absolute worst. I think we're in the 40s or something like that with the number of breweries that we had.
I mean, had I not been a kid at that time, that would be a great time to go over there and start,
Oh
brewing
yeah.
beer.
Oh, that would have been cool. Just what a great way to make a living, right? And a lot of interesting in that documentary, a lot of the breweries are owned by Americans. So a lot of them saw the opportunity early on, and they were like,
I'm just shocked because they just seem to really appreciate flavors and design and
Totally.
crafting. So
cuisine is such a major
I
part
know.
of Japanese
I would
culture.
really
It makes them
think
great.
I just really surprised. This is what I've been hoping to get out of this whole time was finding out, how much craft brewers they had over there, how much they liked it, and I just would think that would be very popular. But
It is. No, it
Okay.
has gotten very popular. But you got to remember, it's still in the early stages, so it takes a long time to spread. So the people who have gotten into it are into it big time. They got that craft beer fever.
yeah,
And the only
all
prescription
about that.
is more
more
beer.
beer,
Yeah,
and more
brewers.
money to buy more beer.
So this is, I thought, pretty interesting. So like I mentioned before, you got Asahi, you got Kirin, you got Sapporo, and Suntory and Orion. Now Suntory, I bet you a lot of people listening are probably like, I've never seen that beer, but I know that name. I've seen it before. And it'll be people who are whiskey drinkers because they have some major whiskeys that you get in the U.S. In fact, I had a whiskey tasting not too long ago, and the one that won out of all the whiskeys we tasted that everybody voted highest for was Suntory Hibiki, it's called.
Okay, so it is marketed as a Japanese whiskey.
Oh, yeah. And you can see, like, right here, I've got Kaio whiskey, which is delicious. So Japanese whiskey is very Scotch-like, typically, in character, which is...
It looks super...
It's amazing.
Clean, and I don't know. I guess because it's so much clearer than the others.
Don't you want to just open it and chug it?
Kind of do, but then I know what will happen, so... No.
Yeah, and it is. It's very light, and that's a 7-year whiskey. So, Suntory, not only do they make, whiskey, Japanese whiskey, but listen to this list of stuff that they make that everybody knows. They own Jim Beam, which is the #1 best-selling bourbon on the planet, which is crazy because bourbon is an American style of whiskey, and it's owned by a Japanese company now, and has been for a little bit. They make Maker's Mark. They make Knob Creek. These are huge brands.
They're
Canadian
brewed in
Club,
America, though, right?
Yeah, they're still brewed. So these were all breweries that existed before they got bought out. Okay. But Suntory bought every single one of them. Lafroig, that's a major Scotch in Scotland, bought out by Suntory. Courvoisier, pass to Courvoisier.
I'm about to say, I only know it from like music. Yeah, nice.
So I thought that was pretty nuts.
Okay.
There was a couple other pretty interesting things watching that documentary. So this is actually, you really think this is interesting, I think, Andrea. They, number one, the amount of women drinking beer in Japan versus men compared to like other countries like the U.S. Mm-hmm. I didn't look up exact numbers, but they talked about it quite a bit. Way higher. It's very popular with females. Yeah, in fact, at one point, the guy's in some brewery, and he's looking around, Rob Labreglio, and he's like, there's literally like all women in here. And you look around the brewery, and almost every single person, the whole brewery was a female drinking beer. I'm like, man, all ages too.
Great.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it's easier to pick up women at a bar in Japan than it is here?
Yes, definitely.
You walk into a bar here, it's
a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
By the way, Great Dane Brewing was the name of the brewery that did the documentary. They're in Wisconsin. Okay. So this is pretty crazy. We already know that they did these crazy tax laws in the past. Well, now they're doing some other unique tax laws where they're like, oh, we're going to tax the beer based on the malt content.
Yes,
you've heard about this?
About this.
I'm like, what kind of crazy? It completely blew up like beer culture. Mm-hmm. So of course, what do these breweries do? Right? They're like, oh, we'll just put less malt and we'll just add other stuff.
Ew.
Yeah, and they call it haposhu. Have you heard of that? Yeah, which is like what does it translates to something? Sparkling alcohol. I know, very strange.
I do not like that at all.
I know. So they're like, if it's less than a 50% malt grain bill, then you get charged at this lower tier. And then if it's below, if it's below another, I forget, it was like in the 20s maybe, or if there's no malt at all, which can you imagine beer with no malt? They tax it even lower. So once haposhu became popular, it became really popular, and breweries were just kind of like almost pushing legitimate beer to the wayside. This is still legitimate beer technically, but it's lame, right? I mean, I haven't had it. I really would like to try it.
I do. I want to try it.
I shouldn't knock it. Maybe it's actually legitimately good.
I know. I'm not going to lie and say that I wouldn't have some, but it's like really hard to tell the difference between that and a real beer. And I'm like, that's so messed up, man. I mean, you could be confused and accidentally purchase the wrong thing, and I don't know. That's so sad.
Yeah. So then it gets worse. So eventually these breweries were like, hey, wait a minute, there's this other lower tier. Why don't we capitalize on that? So they made this this new drink. I don't even call it beer. It's called third beer, or like new genre beer. It's called Daisan no Biru. What is that? Did you say Daisan is Japan?
Yeah, but I don't know what that means. But I don't like that no biru.
It's like Japanese not beer. That's what it sounds like.
Not cool.
So, and this, it kind of makes me think of like seltzers, how they got popular here. You know what I mean?
Everyone, even craft breweries are making seltzers now. But
oh, yeah.
Whatever.
Yep. They are. Oh, my gosh.
To each his own.
Sam Adams is making a killing. I'll tell you, my Sam Adams stock is through the roof.
Are they making seltzers?
Oh, yeah. One of the main ones. Dennis, can you look that up? One of the big ones is
White Claw.
I don't think it's White Claw.
What's that other one?
Dennis will tell us. But yeah, I mean there's
But it's
sales
not
have skyrocketed.
It's not marketed
let's
as
put it
Sam
that way.
Adams.
No.
Okay.
I mean, Angry Orchard is Sam Adams, and that's
Okay.
not
See,
marketed.
that's my
Oh,
problem.
truly.
Truly,
Yeah.
that's it. Truly,
I mean,
that's Sam Adams.
I've had those. I don't know.
I mean, good for them. It's a popular brand right now, or a
Yeah,
popular
give the
style
people
of
what they want.
drink. Yeah, and they're marketing it as a completely separate brand, which I think is smart.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I was like,
Sam
if you
Adams
told me
is beer.
Sam Adams seltzer was
Yeah.
out there, I'd be like, oh no, you didn't.
Yeah.
But, okay, I'm okay with it being
No,
being
you
truly.
didn't. No, you didn't. So anyway, the largest craft brewery does about 40,000 barrels a year. That's the largest craft brewery in Japan. And if you look up like Sam Adams, what they brew a year, I mean,
You said 40,000. What was the units?
Barrels.
Okay.
yeah. So
I gotta
it's I mean that's a lot of beer,
Okay.
and they're called Yoho.
So Sam Adams does about 3.78 million barrels.
Okay, compared to 40,000. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not even close to where we are with the craft beer movement.
You couldn't
over
put that
there.
on the same graph.
Not even close. Not even close. But, again, they're like where we are, where we were probably 15 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I like that excites me because that just shows there's so much room to grow,
Yeah.
And like we've been talking about, that culture is more so they're
Even
going to
more
do
so.
something amazing. I just hope it's available to us.
Yes, and what's great is they don't have the 3-tiered system, which is a huge problem in the U.S. and things are a lot more open. So you could brew your beer and you could just get it, throw it in your truck, and drive the kegs to a local bar that your friend owns, and then he can serve the beer, and you don't have to worry about a distributor and all that stuff. It's so that they have more of the ability to grow than we had available for ourselves.
Cool.
I said that terribly, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
All right. I think that kind of sums it up. I had a lot of fun talking to you today, Andrea Newbern.
And I liked drinking the beer. It was amazing.
The beer was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Maybe we'll do, well, it's not beer, but I wanted to talk to you about their whiskey that they have that has the snake in it. I think it's called Haru
Oh.
or something. I don't know. Have you seen pictures?
I've heard about it.
It's incredible. I mean, I haven't tasted it, but it looks incredible.
Do you eat the snake at the end?
If you want to.
Like a tequila worm? That seems like a bad idea.
Well, that was awesome, David. I enjoyed that because, I mean, I like Japanese beer, but I never really took too much time looking into it. I knew about some of those malt taxes and stuff, but I'm happy. My favorite part was trying new Japanese beers that I've never had before.
That's my
that aren't
favorite part,
available
too.
at our restaurants and stuff. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Awesome.
I'll tell you, I want to visit Japan so bad after.
Me
I had a
too.
lot of fun researching this episode. I
wanna
probably
go.
spent, I'm not even kidding, like probably 15 plus hours watching stuff and reading things. It's such an interesting culture. Even before the beer part, like just Japanese history.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting.
They're pretty cool.
So anyway, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Andrea for
Sure.
hanging out with us and drinking.
Anytime.
Thanks, Andrea.
Sure.
We've got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we're putting together a Discord community which you guys can be a part of. We can talk about beer or history or beer history or anything you want. Also check out our website, which is www.thebeerhistorypodcast.com. You can link to any of our social media there. You can check out our blog. You can listen to the music and our closing credits, all kinds of cool stuff. And most importantly, references, my favorite. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.
Sayonara.
Sayonara.
Piece together in your mind all these special days, tearing down the barriers that cause this purple haze. Found the word too boring. Can we live in poverty? I'd rather sleep in filth than compromise my odyssey. How
You've been listening to the Beer History Podcast, a Hop Stuff LLC production. For more information and references, visit our website, thebeerhistorypodcast.com.